Look, we all know the name Anne Frank. But today, we're going to go deeper than the history books. We're going to look at the intense human drama that unfolded inside the secret annex. This is the story of 8 people, trapped together, their real personalities forced out into the open by unimaginable pressure, all seen through the eyes of one incredibly sharp teenager. Okay, so to really get what was going on in those rooms, you have to think of the annex as a pressure cooker. Seriously, it wasn't just a hiding spot. It was a psychological experiment, a sealed-off world where the non-stop fear and confinement just cranked up the heat on everyone, boiling away all the polite surfaces to show what was really going on underneath. So, who exactly was stuck inside this pressure cooker? Let's meet the 8 people whose lives got tangled up in the most intense and often painful ways imaginable. 8. Just 8 people. But think about it, for over 2 years, that's 761 days, 8 completely different personalities with all their quirks, their habits, their private fears, all forced to live on top of each other in a space that was way too small. Just let that number sink in for a second.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this was basically a recipe for conflict. You had 3 groups that were almost designed to clash. You've got the Franks, Otto, the steady one, Edith, the anxious one, and Margot, the quiet one. Then, bam, in come the Van Pels, total opposites. Loud, always arguing, they brought chaos into a quiet space. And as if that wasn't enough, you add in Mr. Pfeiffer, the dentist. His personality? One word: rigid. You can just feel the tension building, can't you?
So, yeah, you throw all those ingredients into the pot, seal the lid, and turn up the heat. What happens? Exactly. The friction was inevitable. And we're not talking about a few arguments here and there. The clashes became the constant, grinding background noise of their lives. The conflict started right there, with her own family. You know, in the outside world, her sister Margot, being studious and reserved, was just who she was, fine. But stuck inside the annex, that same quiet nature made Anne feel totally invisible, completely misunderstood. The pressure was so intense, it started twisting even the bond between sisters. And that was just the beginning. It was a daily barrage of little things. You had Mrs. Van Pels and her constant, nagging criticisms. You had Mr. Van Pels and his terrifying mood swings that could just fill the tiny space with dread. And then there was Mr. Pfeiffer, whose strict, unbending routines drove everyone absolutely crazy. And here's the key. The feelings weren't just mild annoyance. The source material uses really strong words. It doesn't say his habits bothered her. It says his rigidity enraged her. Enraged! That's such a powerful emotion, and it just tells you how frayed everyone's nerves were. But in the middle of all this chaos, Anne had an anchor, her father, Otto. His steady kindness was pretty much the only source of calm in that whole place. His was the one relationship that seemed to hold up under all that pressure. So all of this, all this tension and conflict, it all leads to the biggest insight from Anne's diary. This is the real takeaway from this whole psychological ordeal. And I'll tell you, it's probably not what you're expecting. I mean, it's the natural question, isn't it? You'd think, facing a common enemy, the shared awful fate, that these 8 people would band together, right? That they'd become a single, unified family? Well, the answer, according to Anne, was a clear and simple no. All that shared trauma, all that fear, it didn't bring them together. Instead, it did something way more revealing. It didn't unite them. It exposed them. It just stripped away every layer of politeness, every social mask they wore, and laid their true selves bare for everyone to see. And this quote just says it all. They weren't heroes in a storybook. They were real, complicated, scared human beings. The pressure cooker didn't make them better people. It just showed who they already were, flaws and all. And because she watched this all happen with such honesty, this young girl basically earned a PhD in human nature before she was even 16. She learned to see people not for who they pretended to be, but for who they really were when everything else was taken away. Which brings us to a final, pretty powerful question. It's easy to judge from the outside, but this story really makes you look inward. When the pressure is on, when the masks come off and there's nowhere to hide, who are you really?